Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast with PJ and Mike. Now find yourself a seat at their table.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast with PJ and Mike. I'm PJ.
And I'm Mike.
And we haven't seen each other for a while, or really spoken to each other in a while, because I have been pretty busy. So today's episode, we're going to talk about what was a couple of busy weekends for me, seeing the Jay and Silent Bob Get Old podcast live. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Free Comic Book Day, which was last Saturday. Which is a big success for Cool Kids Comics and Toys. And then Mike is going to talk about a new documentary that he saw called The Contestant. I don't think we have a childhood memory unless, since we're starting with, I guess, me talking about Jay and Silent Bob. The only childhood memory I could think of is the first time you saw a Jay and Silent Bob movie.
Mm-hmm. I think for me it was Mallrats. That was it. That was the beginning of it all. And those two cracked me up. No, what I liked about them and Mallrats and their other films, they're kind of like side characters. I mean, they would ever pop up. They're almost like the audience's point of view in a strange way. And I mean, there's just, I think they're one of like the greatest duos. They're probably like when people think of, like Doc and Marty and and Harry,
and even like a Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Bill and Ted. They're in that vein.
But
and I mean, Kevin Smith made a career out of these two. I mean, they've been going since '94, and they're in almost every movie he makes. I mean, obviously he writes them that way, but still, they're still successful if he's still pumping out movies. I think Mallrats is probably the first Jay and Silent Bob movie I saw. Also, I think I saw it on TV, and then I think I found Clerks after that.
Right. Yep.
And then it just spiraled from there, and I saw all the things that they've done. But yeah, I think I agree. Mallrats is definitely the first one that I saw. I think the first one I saw in theaters, I think we actually saw it together. We went to see Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yep. I enjoyed that movie.
I love that movie. I think it's so fun. And that's probably the first one of theirs I actually saw in a theater was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Right. And that was me, you, our buddy Dan. I think a couple other people with us too, but I couldn't remember now.
I can't remember. Yeah, either. I was gonna say real quick because obviously, for those who are listening, Jay and Silent Bob is Kevin Smith's, creation. Are they in Dogma? No, yes, they're in Dogma, are they in Chasing Amy?
Yes.
Okay,
they only have one scene in Chasing Amy. They only have one
that's
scene.
why.
So what happened was, and maybe we'll do a Kevin Smith episode and just go through all the Jay and Silent Bob movies and rank them the way we do all the other different types of sequels. But what happened with Chasing Amy was Clerks was a huge hit as an independent movie, and he got studio money for the next movie. They made Mallrats, which was a commercial flop while it was in the theaters, although it found a much bigger audience as a cult following later on. So when he went back to being a much more independent type of movie for Chasing Amy, and he scaled back on the shenanigans, and that's why he reduced the time for Jay and Silent Bob to try and make it more of I don't want to say serious movie. It's still a comedy, but it's much heavier than the other two.
Yeah, for sure. That's like one of my favorite films by Kevin Smith. And I
great.
saw an interview with Ben Affleck. Actually, I think it's the one with him and his buddy Matt Damon. They talk about their career. One of those like GQ like variety things on YouTube. But he talks about how like he was almost somewhat typecast. He was always the bully. He was always like the mean guy, or he was like always a side character. And Chasing Amy actually gave him like a lead role.
Right.
And he credits that for really giving him the ability to be a leading man in a lot of films. And so it was pretty cool. I like the movie a lot.
It's one of his best movies. It doesn't often get the credit it deserves, but
no way.
It's definitely one of his best movies. So
it's really a romantic comedy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm curious, what did you see live? Is it a play? What is it?
It's a podcast that they do. So Kevin Smith has several podcasts. He did Smodcast for a million years, which is one of the original podcasts that made podcasting like a thing that people do. It was really, I think, Corolla, Rogan, and Kevin Smith's Smodcast and The Nerdist are probably what were the biggest original podcasts.
The OGs, yeah.
Yeah, and then he started doing other ones. And one of the ones he started doing was called Jay and Silent Bob Get Old. And he does it with Jason Mewes. and he actually told the story of how the podcast started. So it's basically they just record it live in front of an
Oh,
audience.
so it's recorded live in
Yeah,
front of a
it's just
live
a
studio.
recorded live. Yeah, that's
Oh,
what it is.
okay.
He just records the podcast live in front of an audience. So it was at the Paramount in Huntington.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we made a day of it, right? We closed the store at 4 o'clock on Sundays, and we head out to Huntington. We had some dinner. Me and Jen, we went out to have dinner. We went to a place called Meehan's, which is right across the street from the Paramount. And the weather was beautiful. We were able to sit outside. It was great. And then the show started around. I think the doors opened at 7, and the show started at 8.
Right.
So basically, he gave the history of why the podcast started when we were watching it. I think everyone who's sort of a fan of Jay and Silent Bob knows that in real life, Jason Mewes had a drug problem.
Mm.
And he's now sober. And he started a podcast. And what they did was every week on the podcast, it was basically, we're only going to keep doing this if you stay sober. So it's almost
Oh.
like an accountability thing for Jay to
Yep.
give him a reason to not fall back on drugs, because this was how what his career was. This is how the only way he was making money at the time, because they weren't pumping out Jay and Bob films for a while, and that was sort of like the incentive for him to stay sober, and that's why they started doing it. It's not about that anymore. They said
Yeah.
when we were there, I think he was something like 13 years sober or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he has kids now, and he said there's no reason to do a podcast to stay sober. Now they just do it so they can hang out and have fun.
Right.
And so that's what the show is. It's all about them telling stories about their travels and making the movies, and it was really very funny. They started off telling about their travel stories, and they were the night before on Saturday they were at Asbury Park. I think it was Asbury. They were doing a show there, and then they thought they could just wake up the next morning on Sunday, leave 1 o'clock, drive to Long Island and do the show at night. They didn't realize, they said, it was how long it takes to get from New Jersey
Oh,
to
yeah.
Huntington, when on the map it looks very close. And it was funny, they were talking about the traffic when you get over like the bridge, and the traffic at Staten Island, and it's things we probably know well.
Oh, yeah.
And I wouldn't expect them to know it, but just hearing like people from who now live in the West Coast, they're never here, talk about the traffic on the Verrazano Bridge, or talk about the traffic in Staten Island. I thought it was the funniest thing, because we live that like all
Yeah.
the time. So he starts talking about that. They told some stories about some of the movies they're filming. So he has a new movie coming out, I think he said this summer. And they spoke a little bit about that, but then he announced that he's going to be doing a new Jay and Silent Bob movie.
Oh, okay.
And they actually performed a scene from the movie. Yeah. And there was, they asked us not to tell anybody what it's about or spoil it, and because I'm a fan, I won't spoil it on them. But
Also, they gave you the plots.
They gave us a little bit of the plot. They actually performed a scene from the movie, and
Okay.
it was very, very funny, and actually more focused on Jay and Silent Bob, much like the other two Jay and Silent Bob movies were. But this one, I'm trying to think how I can describe it without spoiling it. It's not them going back to California to cancel a movie. It's focused on them being in New Jersey, it seems like, and a much more smaller film, like some of his other more popular films, just with Jay and Silent Bob as the main characters this time.
Okay.
And they went through the scenes of that, and it sounds like it's going to be very funny. And they do this thing at the end of the live podcast, and they call it "Let Us Fuck." Is the name of the segment. I don't know if you saw Zack and Miri, the movie Zack and Miri.
I saw it once, man. I saw it once.
It
was good though.
It was all right. Yeah, it's not my favorite of his movies, but there's a scene in that movie where Jay yells. He plays a different character. He's not Jay, but
yeah,
he yells, "Let us fuck," because they're making a porn in the movie. So they do something similar. They take people out of the audience, and they come up with different sex positions, and Jay and someone from the audience acted out on stage.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's very funny, and it's very awkward, but they pulled someone from the audience. They pulled a dude from the audience. They pulled, some girl from the audience, and then an older woman. I'm not saying she was like
Right.
geriatric old, but much older than someone you would expect to go on stage and perform a fake sex act, which made it extra funny. 'Cause she was like, she wanted to do it, but she felt so awkward doing it. It was very funny. But yeah, it was a great time. The thing that surprised me the most about the show was there was really no merch table.
Wow.
I was expecting to get maybe a couple of T-shirts or something.
Yeah, of course, like a
They
keychain. Yeah.
they didn't have any T-shirts. They didn't have any sweatshirts or anything like that. They had a couple of hats and a couple of tchotchkes. I think they might have had I don't even know, like not even a statue. It was just like maybe an action figure or something. Very, very small merch table, so I couldn't add to my Kevin Smith collection.
Wow. This sounds like a good show, man. I like the origin of how it started.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time really recanting their travels and their time in the airports. And it's funny, they have funny stories and they're storytellers, so they can make it entertaining. But that must be some life where you're just always on the go. Right after they were leaving there, they said they were flying back to the West Coast, and then they had to fly to London.
Oh my god.
Yeah, can you imagine just that much travel every day? It must be just the most tiring. But it was a great show. He's always funny. It was about 2 hours. They give you about 2 hours worth of content, so
So
you
is
get
it?
your money's worth.
Yeah. So is it like, I'm just curious? Is the first hour the podcast, and the second hour is them doing the you know, I guess the performance piece of
Yeah,
them
it's
acting out.
the
Like,
first hour of the podcast was kind of. I'll tell you what, the whole 2 hours is really just them talking. They introduce the concept of the show in the beginning, and then it's really just the two of them having a conversation.
right. So the
It's
second hour. So if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear them acting. You'll hear this plot of the
yeah,
new film.
they probably would cut that out. I don't think
Oh,
they'll put
okay.
that
Okay.
on. Yeah, I
All
think
right.
they'll cut that part out. That's usually for the live audience. Basically, what he said he was doing was he wanted to test some of the jokes.
Got it.
Some of the jokes are Jersey centric,
Gotcha.
because that's
Mhm.
where the film takes place. That's where they're from, and he was saying when he writes those jokes in his head they're funny,
Yeah.
but will
Yeah,
it
an
play
outsider. Yeah.
right? Where else will it play? Now, Long Island, New Jersey aren't that far apart, so it plays here. But if he does that joke in like Idaho, who
Hmm.
knows? So
Yeah.
he
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes will drop a scene and he'll do it in front of an audience. He said to gauge how his writing is, or if he has to tweak anything, should a scene be cut, things
Right.
like that. And that's actually a really interesting idea, I thought, for like testing the water of your movie. You have this
Yeah.
built-in audience.
Yeah, I mean, they do it with movies. You have your test
Yeah,
screenings, so it makes sense to have like your. I mean, I think comics do it too when they go on their tours and they have like, oh,
yeah,
HBO special. They go, okay, I know these jokes always land,
yep,
and you're gonna just basically, when you go
yeah,
record your
yeah, absolutely.
special, you gotta have all your, you gotta have all your home runs. You're not gonna put up your, your strikeouts there. So no,
Yeah,
nice.
so it was a fun time. It wasn't super long. We weren't there till like 2 in the morning. It started at 8. It was over by 10. So it was just a nice, quick, entertaining evening. It was pretty fun. And the Paramount's always great. No bad seats in the house.
Yep.
So that's always a good place to go. They have a couple of other acts coming up there that I might wind up going to see. I think we saw Marcy Playground is going to be there,
Oh, okay.
and I haven't heard anything about Marcy Playground since what, it
Uh,
had to be the 90s or early
right,
2000s.
Sex and Candy. Yeah.
That's the only song of theirs I know, and I
Mhm.
might drop down a couple of bucks to go see them just to see that song.
Yeah, yeah, and
Uh,
it's a great venue. Like, I've seen
Yeah,
boxing matches there. I've seen a lot of different bands play there. It's a great venue.
yeah, absolutely. So and they get some real good acts.
Yeah, Jim Brewer has like a residency there,
Yeah,
basically. So,
and then the following weekend after that was Free Comic Book Day,
aha,
and Free
which is the
Comic Book
same weekend as May the
as
Fourth be with
as
you,
Star
and
Wars Day. Yes,
Revenge of the Fifth, as they
yes,
say.
yes. So what Free Comic Book Day is, for people who don't know, is actually started over 20 years ago. Marvel, it started really with Marvel and DC, then other distributors and
Yeah,
other
they
companies
start
got into
catching
it.
on. Yeah.
They put out free comic books, to introduce big storylines and try and get people into the comic book stores to buy the comic, to get the free ones, so they'll want to come back and then keep buying them. And I've been going to Free Comic Book Day for 20 years. I would, as a
Yeah.
customer, I would go to the comic book store and I would pick up my free comic book the way I always do. Um, it was much different this year being on the other side of that counter.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, so what most stores do, and I did the same thing at Cool Kids Comics, is you have like some sort of promotional things like sales and discounts and all that stuff, right? Because it's great to
So
have people come into. Go ahead, you go first.
no,
Ask the
so
question.
my question is
Yeah.
this is gonna be a dumb question. So you get these free comics for free, right? So I
No,
guess
I have to buy them.
you have to buy them.
I have to
Okay.
buy the free comics.
Okay, so then I guess so you don't make it a profit with that. I guess you scan them for inventory purposes, but you
Right.
make your money if they go, oh, I'm gonna they're
Buy
gonna pay it
something else.
forward. So if I'm gonna buy this, if I'm getting this for free,
Maybe I'll
I'm
buy
gonna
something
get
else.
right.
Right.
Okay, and then
Exactly.
here's my next question is,
Yeah.
how many free comics can you get? Like obviously you can't take, I don't know, maybe you can.
So
Maybe take all, maybe all 100, maybe 100 free. You take all 100.
so what we did, um, in terms of how many are there, we had like 3 tables full of different titles, right? Your DC one, your Marvel one, Image, the Spider-Man, the Star Wars, the
Mm,
this, the that. There, I mean, I don't know how many different books there were. There had to be at least 20 or 30 different titles. And
right.
then how many of each do I order is how many do I have. Um, and I tried to order a good amount, so that I could have enough to hand out. I had an ordering snafu, and I
Ew.
meant to order a, a bundle of 25 um, Energon Transformer free comic books. Um, so there was a bundle of 25. So when you put quantity, you put one, but you're getting 25, right? I
Oh.
accidentally put 10. So that's
Ah,
250 comic books of just that Transformers book.
damn. Right.
So what we did was everybody
Everybody
gets it.
got a
Everybody
Transformers
got
book.
one of them, and then you could pick 4 others. So in total, you'd walk away with 5.
Right. That's fair. That's cool.
Yeah. And most
So
people pick the Marvel and the DC ones.
right, of course. And the free comic books, like you order, there's I guess is there a specific thing that says these are the ones that are for free comic book
Yes.
day?
Yes.
Okay. All
They
right.
have a logo on the top, free comic book day. They hype it up. We had a poster on the door for about a month to like hype it up, and it showed what was coming out, so people knew what to expect. Um, so I figured the store's only here 6 months, right?
Right.
6 months is not that long a time in the grand scheme of things. I figured my regular customers would show up. I do have regulars, and I figured some other folks may Google us, find comic book store
Yeah.
near me or whatever, and show up. I was ill prepared for the turnout on
Uh
free
oh.
comic book day. When I tell you, I mean, people waiting to get into the store before we even opened. I think at one point, and you've been in the store, it's not small, but it ain't huge.
Yeah.
There must have been a good 20 people in the store at one time
Right.
throughout the entire day. It was packed wall to wall with customers, which as a retailer is fucking phenomenal. But the anxiety that causes you is just
I'm
it's a lot of
sure.
work. We
Training.
did some sales. We did 25% off back issue comic books. We did some sales on some other stuff, on some toys. We also, like you said, it was Star Wars Day. It was May the 4th. We opened what we called the Cool Kids Cantina. So in the back of the store, we got a backdrop of the Star Wars Cantina. I had my nephew dress up as Han Solo. He had the white shirt, the vest,
Yeah, I
right?
saw that. Yeah,
You
I
saw
think
the
his
picture, I think, right?
girlfriend was she was Leia, right? I
That was
think.
my niece. That was my
Oh, your
niece.
niece. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and she was just kind of Star Wars inspired, kind of like a mixture between Rey and Leia. And they hung out in the Star Wars Cantina. My nephew would play a hand of Sabacc, which is the card game that Han beats Lando
Uh,
in to win the Falcon. He would,
yeah.
and if they beat him, you would get a token, and then you could redeem that for 10% off any Star Wars item in the store,
Oh, okay.
like a little incentive to play. And then my niece, she would I don't know if you want to call it bartend or whatever at the cantina, but she would serve blue milk. We had blue milk for everybody
Oh,
because everyone
cool.
knows who drinks the blue
Yeah.
milk. We went through. So True Moo put out the blue milk. It was a promotional thing they were doing, so we
Right.
just bought a couple of bottles of that. I don't. We went through 4 containers of blue milk from True Moo.
Damn.
He only gave you like a shot glass.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Full, so it's not as if that means a lot of people were
Right.
chugging
Wanted
down
that
some
blue
milk.
milk, man.
Yeah.
Hmm.
but it was fun and people had a good time with that. And I mean, we had people buying so much stuff. It was great. It
Right.
was great for business, but it was also great just to like see people coming in here and having fun, and hopefully they become regular customers and they come back. But when I used to go to get the comic books as a customer, I'd just walk up to the counter. Everyone knew who I was. They'd hand me my comic books and I'd leave. You're in and out.
Yeah.
You don't realize that the madhouse that a comic book store can become. It's like Black Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It
Hmm.
was wild, and we rolled out a new display of vintage Star Wars stuff, like from the 70s and 80s, the original Star Wars toy. So like the original Jabba the Hutt toy and the original Slave One ship and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Death Star. So like people were coming in and seeing that stuff, and it's just like, oh my God, you have like the original this, and they'd walk around, and it was great. But it was wild the amount of people that fit in this store. I mean, we've been in here recording podcasts with like 4 people, and it could get a little tight. So you can
Right. Yeah.
imagine
I
what's
can.
like
Yeah.
20 people
Hmm.
in this store at once. It was crazy, but it was fun. It was good. I think it's gonna really bring a lot of return customers, which will be great for the
Yep.
store. And what's great about getting more customer means we can keep the store here longer, which means we can keep recording in the store for as long
Yeah.
as we want.
Yeah.
We'll always have
Everybody
one for the
wins.
podcast. So that was great. So 2 good weekends in a row for me. But that's why we haven't been able to record in person for a while, is I've just been the busiest guy.
Yeah, man. Yeah. What? Those are all good things. Good, fun
All
things to
great
be
things,
busy with.
absolutely
Yep.
great
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah. And I guess I was busy because in my home we now have Hulu and
Ah,
Disney Plus. So I guess
okay.
it's like a package deal. So
Yes.
I guess the algorithms in your phone hear you.
Yep.
So all of a sudden I started getting advertisements for Hulu and the movies that they're playing, and all of a sudden I know we just had a documentary episode, but I saw this one trailer and it just caught my eye. Really, it just got released on the 2nd, and we're recording this on the 7th of
So
May.
it's brand new.
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted to see it because I enjoy documentaries, and I also it reminded me of the Truman Show with Jim Carrey.
Now that is my favorite Jim Carrey movie. I
Oh
I
yeah,
don't think he's. I think that's the best movie, and I don't think he's ever topped it in his career. I mean, as
yeah.
much
In
as I
terms of
love the Ace Ventura and all the other stuff,
yeah,
Truman Show is a level above. It's brilliant.
yeah. That movie is firing all pistons. So basically, just to kind of get, I guess, a quick synopsis of the Truman Show, and I'll tell you why this documentary, The Contestant, are very similar. So the Truman Show is about um, Jim Jim Carrey's character, Truman Burbank.
Mhm.
He's basically like an orphan, and he's kind of like the first reality TV. He's like since an infant till he's an adult, his whole life is filmed, but he doesn't realize he's filmed, and everyone who he interacts with is an actor. So um, when he's a things like in the movie, I think he's like in his late 20s, maybe early 30s.
Mhm.
He starts to realize something's off, and he realizes that he is on camera, and he's going to try to break out of this TV set,
Yep.
TV show. But it's very dramatic. Ed Harris, Peter Weir, it's the same guy who made Dead Poet Society. If you haven't seen this film, it's great. So,
I mean, I to this day, I still say to people, "Good morning," and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Like I still say that
exactly.
to people.
Right, exactly. So that movie came out. I'm pretty sure I'm going by memory. I didn't write the notes down, but came out like '98. Okay, so now this documentary is called The Contestant, and it also takes place in 1998. So this is before, like, I mean, you had like MTV, the what's it called, The Real World and Road Rules, but in Japan, there was this guy. His name was Toshio Tushima. I'm sure I'm pronouncing his name right. So this is like the character in Truman Show, Christoph, Ed Harris's character, who's
Okay.
like, who really in the movie he says himself, "I'm not God, but I might be the devil." So this is a guy who's like obsessed with ratings, and he's like,
Right.
I guess you want to go like, a crazy artist. So he came up with this reality show: is we're gonna get some man or woman, we're gonna have them basically audition, right? Basically, just pick some rando. They come up to an
Right.
audition for a TV show, and then we're gonna have them stay isolated um, in a random apartment somewhere. They don't know where it is, and they have to stay in there with nothing. There's nothing besides running water and heat in the
Right.
bathroom. But they go in there stripped naked, and you have to survive off uh, magazine sweepstakes. And that's how you survive. And your goal is to make 1 million yen, which is equivalent to $8,000. So you
Okay.
can leave this room at any time, but you have to accumulate in terms of prizes up to $8,000.
Okay.
Okay. Now enter our our hero, if you want to say, and his name is uh, Tomoaki Hamatsu, but he goes by the nickname of uh, Nasubi, okay, which is Japanese for eggplant. He got this name eggplant right because his face is actually very long. It's like I
Okay.
don't think he has a deformity, but you find out. I'm just gonna call him by his nickname for the rest of this, and I'm gonna give you guys spoilers, completely spoilers. So, because the story is amazing. So, Nasubi, like I said, when he was a kid, his father was a police officer, and I guess in Japan, when you're a police officer, it's I mean, like just like here in America, it's paramilitary, but like you stay 2 years in one city and then you bounce around. So by the time by the age of 5, when you're actually, I guess, more self-aware of the universe, every time he would go to a new school, he would get bullied. Right when he finally gains respect, starts making friends, he moves. And every time he goes, people would make fun of his face and blah 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 blah. And he kind of realized that through comedy, meant laughing at himself, decreased the bullying and made him respected more. So he kind of kept the nickname for himself to kind of take ownership of it, uh, Nasubi. So yeah, the eggplant thing. And his dream became really to become a comedian. So when he's like a young adult, he wants to break out in the industry. So um, this part comes important because his mom and dad weren't completely, on board with him becoming an entertainer. They says, all right, if you're gonna pursue your dream, don't do anything with nudity. Okay,
Okay.
so we're gonna see where this goes. So he goes to like this open audition, right? And just imagine there's like 15 other people, like me, you, guys, girls, whatever, right? And all of a sudden, I can't remember. I'm trying to think of the film. I think they pick a number out of the hat, like oh, contestant number 5. It happens to be him, right? By chance. So without saying goodbye to his family, he doesn't even know what's happening. He doesn't really know what
Right.
this contest is. He thinks he's auditioning for some kind of, any show, like a movie or something.
Right.
So they blindfold him. They put earmuffs on him. He can't hear shit, and they just drive him somewhere. And then also they take all his, his blindfold off, earplugs out, and the creator of the show, Toshio, goes, "I want you to strip naked," and he explains the rules of the game. You have to win. You have to submit these sweepstakes, like enter your name, and if you can accumulate this amount of money, we'll set you free, and you win. I gotta say, one of the things I didn't like about the documentary is I didn't know if he won anything at the end. They're not very clear about that, but I know
Right.
it's a little sketchy shit going. That's why he calls himself the devil. Um,
S- So, all right. So let's make sure I understand everything.
Yep.
So this guy, the eggplant guy,
yep.
he just wants to be an entertainer.
hmm
He goes to audition, and he's essentially kidnapped.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
And they take his clothes and they say, fill out your sweepstakes. If you could win the Publishers Clearinghouse, and the
Right.
man
Yeah.
knocks on your door, okay, you can
Right.
leave.
Right.
If is he locked in there from like the outside, or can he leave and just give up on the whole thing if he wants?
Oh, he's not. Yeah, he can leave whenever
Okay.
he wants.
Okay.
So, but yeah, he can't. He can't talk to anyone out of the outside.
Okay.
The only
There's
time
no
he might.
phones. There's no TV in there. It's just
Nope.
him and 4 walls and a bathroom. They feed him.
Well, here's the thing. That's where it gets interesting. So, like I said, as soon as they right before, like I guess the creator, like the Toshio leaves, and that's the only time they kind of interact with them. Like, and with the way they interact with him is like they can't just have the guy starve to death because all of his
Right.
anything he lives off is something he wins through prizes. So, initially he has no prizes because he hasn't entered any of them. He's like,
Right.
and only thing inside this room is just magazines, 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 magazines. So he has to fill all these out, and he didn't realize the creator says we are recording this, but we're gonna uh, eggplant thought they were gonna compile this and then make a movie out of it. What he didn't
Right.
realize was actually live streamed.
It was streaming live the whole time.
Right. But this
So everyone's
was
just
1998.
watching this guy naked,
Exactly.
filling out
Right.
magazines. Okay.
Right. And and during the documentary interview, this woman, she was like this. She's from like the British. She was like the British correspondent for Japan. She says when they did the live streams, because everyone knew his nickname was Eggplant. Originally, they would to blur out his penis, they would use a black dot.
They
Then
start
they
using
started,
an eggplant.
and that's Sasha says that's how that kind of started. Was now with our cell phones, that's how it kind of. It's really because of this dude.
Wow.
So yeah, so it became that whole part of our pop culture now. So yeah, so like I said, he's going in there. He has no food, right? So originally they give him crackers, right? He can't starve him to death,
Right.
So anyway, he starts winning prizes. He finally wins rice, but he's got no pot to piss in,
To cook it in.
right?
Right.
So he has to like it's almost like Survivor. So he starts using like empty like cans or
Wow.
boxes of like the crackers that came in. He finds different ways to do this, and you're watching this guy do this, So
And they show the footage of this in the documentary, so you can see what he's
oh
doing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's about an hour and a half.
Okay.
So you're watching this guy go through it, right? So when he's winning all kinds of prizes, and it's like some of it could be like women's clothing, but it doesn't fit him,
Right.
and he wins like a stuffed animal. It actually reminded me of remember Castaway. He has Wilson.
Yeah.
He starts to kind of talk to him. I did some other research about this where he actually used that to really conversate more because he didn't want to lose his mind.
Right.
So anyway, he's trying to accumulate all these different things. And one of the things they do leave in this room, they do have an emergency phone. God forbid he like bugs out, so he has that.
Right.
But they give him basically journals to write in, right? And he's long. I guess I'll cut somewhat to the end. All these journals end up becoming bestsellers.
Wow.
He starts talks about his feelings and like
Mm-hmm.
isolation, all these different things. So let me skip to this. And throughout the thing, he wins like a TV set. They end up blocking, I guess, reception, but he wins like a PlayStation, and so he's not completely bored.
Can he win pants?
He can, but most of the time he does. He's mostly winning like he won like car tires. You know what I mean?
Right.
You see him win all these things that are just completely useless to him, but it's accumulating for him to like win the thing.
Right.
So here's the part. Here's the thing. He wins. He finally does it. He finally breaks $8,000. It's
So is it $8,000 just overall value, or he needs to actually win money of $8,000?
No. Just value of all the
Okay,
things that he
okay.
accumulates. That's car tires.
Yep.
You know.
Okay.
So he started this. Oh, let me find the note. Oh no. Okay, so he started this in January of 1998. Okay. This doesn't end till April of 1999, but right. So it's about
over a year.
Yeah. So just short of a year, right? He completes which he thinks is the first challenge, right? So of course the producer comes in, Toshio comes in and kind of goes and kind of wakes up in the middle of the night, like he's trying to make a spectacle out of him,
Right.
So he goes, he gives him like a suit. They give him a blindfold, right? And they travel him. Now all of a sudden he ends up in Korea because in his journal he says, "Oh, that's my favorite food," right? So they take him to an amusement park. It's basically like the Coney Island of Korea, right?
Okay.
It says, "Okay, man, we're gonna go back to Japan now." Wrong. They end up putting him in the same exact situation in Korea.
Oh my God.
In the documentary, they say we're gonna, in editing they make it like for TV, for television. It only took him 1 second. Hey, I agree to do this. In real life,
Right.
it took him 3 hours to convince him. This guy's almost doing this for a year. He did it basically
Right.
for 11 months. So he says, "Okay, I'll do it again." They do it again. Get ready for this. I didn't know this. Japanese, Chinese, I know to a degree, obviously they're different languages, but it's
Right.
also different, alphabet. So he didn't know a lick of Korean. So he has to figure out the Korean alphabet. So this time the goal was just for him to get a plane ticket back to Japan.
Wow.
But Eggplant's a smart guy, right? Nasubi, he's a smart dude. So he actually gets it down to a science. It's amazing how like the will of survival makes you think just differently, So he ends up doing it by a science where he starts winning super fast. So they keep saying, "Okay, besides you won a plane ticket, now it's business, now it's first class."
Right.
They kept raising the stakes to make television bigger.
Right.
So
Right.
he
This
finally
poor guy.
right. So
just
he
ready to go
finally
home.
went. So this whole time the guy talks about like he gets like somewhat like suicidal, and he thinks this is his big break, and then part of him finds like spirituality, and it's very opening, very beautiful. So anyway, he finally wins it, right? And the same thing happens. Producer comes, puts the headphones on him, puts the eye mask, puts him in a suit. Now this was fucked up. he thinks he's like exhausted. This guy, he's now it's April. It's almost a year and a quarter, right? They go in front of a live studio audience, right? And then, but here's the thing: they put him inside another room, but we see him inside the room, but he doesn't realize is a studio audience, right?
Right.
And they tell him to strip. He strips, right? This is live TV watching this guy do this, right? They take it off, and he's like, and all of a sudden you see this guy just look to feet. He's like, I can't believe I'm doing this again for a third time, right? And now the only thing this guy, and throughout the film, the only piece of clothing he has really is like this pillow that he has, like maybe a jizz pillow. I don't know what it was, but right. But so anyway, he's totally nude. He has this pillow in front of him, right? All of a sudden, bro, it's like you gotta see this. All of a sudden, all four walls just collapse, and he's in front of a live studio audience. And all of a sudden, it's like two hosts come, imagine like Dick Clark or Regis and Kelly Robinson going like, "Konnichiwa, you made it!" And this guy is just bugging out this confetti. He's totally nude. We're like, it's like the ultimate prank, and he's just like, he's in a state of shock. And like, you did it, and he can't even talk right. He's just totally like mind blown. Like going from like talking to no one for a year and almost like solitary confinement
to being on TV naked in front of a studio audience.
Right, it made a fool out of him. So.
Right. And he doesn't win anything?
So they're not very clear like that, honestly. They're not very clear that he even gets any kind of financial compensation. I'm assuming when he gets, because his book's a bestseller at this point,
right.
And he's like volumes. He has like 4 from Japan and 1 from Korea. They were all, each volume is a bestseller. So I'm assuming he made, hopefully got something from that. But from the competition itself, I'm not sure. But anyway,
why would you agree to do it if they weren't going to give you anything?
I know. They're not in the documentary though. They're not very clear. And what I've found online, even reviews say like, I don't hope this man is compensated. Mr. Eggplant. So anyway, he talks about in the later half of this documentary, he talks about how like, he had to like almost learn how to talk again. You know what I mean?
Wow.
He also says like even putting clothes on again was almost, he got so used to being nude.
Right.
Or like, But the interesting thing, I guess, is the more spiritual part is like where he lived in his hometown. He went to Tokyo. That's where like it's kind of like our New York City of of Japan. He lives in Fukushima, and I forgot like maybe 2011, 2012 is when they had that awful tsunami and earthquake where they had like that nuclear reactor almost exploded or whatever.
Yeah.
So he goes back to his home village. And he's like almost like a hero. He like cheers everybody like, oh my God, like everyone felt like shit. And he comes back like this. What he did was just come back to, hey, I love you guys, my community. And he become like this, like a hero. Cause like originally he feels like a goof, he was nude, seeing his parents again. He felt like a tool. He didn't see him for a year, but this
they
was
have
like
no idea where he is. They
don't know. They only see him on TV and they finally see him and he's nude, So, to make a long story short, this guy ended up climbing Mount Everest, and how like while he was on the mountain at one point there was like an avalanche, people died, and like he tried climbing Mount Everest like 4 times, and he finally did it on the 4th attempt. But anyway, it's a heck of a documentary. It's like I said, if you know Truman Show, you're gonna definitely like this documentary. I think you could probably cut 15. It's an hour and a half. You could probably, if I could re-edit it, you could probably cut 15 minutes out of it, make it a little bit tighter. But I feel like there's a lot of answers. I mean, a lot of questions that are not answered in terms of like, did this guy get paid or anything?
It's just wild.
But it's like really crazy, man. How like, I guess the other themes of this documentary is just about like, what we do for fame. Here you have the Subi Eggplant. He wants to make it as an actor. I mean, he puts himself through this. And then you have the other side of this creator who's like obsessed with like this social experiment that he's.
I would never do it. You kidding?
No way.
First of all, if someone tries to kidnap me, it's not going to go well for that person. I'm going to fight. The minute you try to put something over my head so I can't see where I'm going, no.
Yeah. He was never forced. He can leave at any time.
Right.
So like I said, there's different parts of this document I kind of left out. Like he kind of talks about like, I guess like some kind of spirituality kind of thing.
Right.
But I think, like I said, there's a lot of themes of, like I said, of like, what we want to do for fame. Obviously this show started in 1998. Truman Show came out in 1998, so it wasn't like they came out basically simultaneously.
At the same time, yeah.
Yeah, which it wasn't like one inspired the other. So it's kind of crazy they came out essentially at the same time. And just a lot of things about just how like how isolation can really start to play games in your own head. And he talks
Yeah.
about COVID, and he became like almost like a spokesperson for coaching people how to deal with isolation. And it was very, very interesting. But yeah, it's called The Contestant. I definitely recommend it. It's and for folks who maybe check us out on YouTube because we do have video. And anyway, my screen behind me is
His
a
eggplant.
Subi. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes. So
Imagine this guy. Like, I think I would have the worst PTSD. I would never be able to like go to sleep at night. I'm afraid I'm gonna get kidnapped and wake up naked in a room again.
yeah, yeah, man. It's just like I said, it was something you have to just see to believe, and like because you can almost see stuff like this happening now,
Yeah,
and,
and I could
live
see them putting it
streaming.
on Netflix.
Exactly, but this is 1998, way
Man,
before the internet, and in the infancy of the
for
internet, if
real.
anything. So, but yeah, that's The Contestant, and yeah, and he didn't really make it as like an actor or a comedian, really. I mean, he's like almost like he's like a guy who would appear like on Hollywood Squares, that kind of
Yeah,
celebrity, you know.
right.
But really seems like a really great guy, and I don't, and even my wife said he's not like ugly. I think he's just an average looking dude. Yes, his face is long, but I don't
Right.
find him like he's not like Quasimodo. But obviously we know people can be cruel, but I like him. I like him. He seems like a good dude, and he has one hell of a story that
For
I'm
real.
glad.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's just I don't know. That's crazy.
yeah,
Imagine that. I'm
yeah.
looking at the picture in your background with like the racks of magazines and
Yeah,
shit, and
yeah,
it's just like imagine having the. I don't know. I couldn't do it.
yeah.
I don't
It's
have it in me. I couldn't do it.
yeah. It's one of those things you have to just truly see to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. I can. I can only imagine. I might have to watch that. That's on Hulu.
Yep, yep. Yeah, it's an easy
Well,
watch too.
yeah. If you have the Hulu Disney Plus package now, you got to catch up on that X Men '97
Oh yeah,
after
yeah,
you're
yeah.
done watching Eggplant get locked in the rooms. You got to catch up on that X Men '97 because that
Yeah,
is
check
taking
out Rogue. Check out Rogue, Storm, Jean Grey. Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
show. I know we spoke about it a few episodes ago, but that show has gotten better and better and
No,
better
I've
each
heard.
week.
hmm
The writing on that show is
And
so good.
I heard that my man was for Christopher Barnes, the guy who did. I
Hmm.
think that's his
Yep,
last name. The guy who did
that's
Spider
Spider
Man.
Man. Yeah.
I guess spoiler alert. I guess he made a cameo, and he's
Well,
basically campaigning to have his
yes.
series,
They
which
so
definitely needed it because if you know the original series of Spider-Man,
ends on a
it's left
cliffhanger.
off. It left. I know. I was
Yeah.
so pissed off as a kid, man, or young teen. I was
Yeah.
pissed.
It
So,
ends on a cliffhanger. So they do show a brief clip of Spider-Man in the X-Men '90. So he doesn't talk. It's just the
right.
cameo of him like swinging through the city. But yeah, that voice actor is now campaigning to do a Spider-Man. I think 9080 wants they
Yep.
want he said the call or something. I hope they do it. I just hope they keep making these X-Men. I've said forever I am not the biggest X-Men fan. I've never been my favorite. The writing on this show is phenomenal.
Mhm.
Just the everything about it. So if you have the Hulu Disney Plus package, I think they're 6 or 7 episodes in, maybe 8 at this point. I'm not sure, but you can watch. They're quick. They're 20 minutes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just it's 20-25 minutes tops. You can power right through them. I mean, spoiler alert for anyone listening. This one came out a couple of weeks ago. Do you mind if I spoil it?
yeah. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Yeah.
They kill Gambit. They
No.
kill him in the most badass
All right, don't
way.
tell me that. Don't tell me how
Yeah,
they
I
do it.
won't tell you how.
Right.
In the most craziest way imaginable. It's the coolest thing you've ever seen. Like wild, just a wild
Okay.
show. So if you have the Disney Plus, catch up on. There's a lot you could avoid on Disney Plus. Watch X-Men '97.
All right. But
It's not a documentary, and they don't lock anybody up in a room naked, but
they
it
don't
is
lock.
still
imagine,
very entertaining.
imagine if Professor X still alive to lock him up in a room, no
Yeah,
wheelchair, nothing.
no wheelchair. He's just like on the floor. He's like, well, now what?
Ah. But
He can make shit move with his brain, right? Doesn't he have all the telekinesis? They show it. Why can't he
I
just make himself walk?
he's telekinesis. I thought he was just telepathic.
Just telepath. Well, Jean Grey does both. Maybe Professor
Right,
X doesn't. But
right.
I
Maybe
mean
just
that
him
guy.
crawling around. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, folks. Thanks for listening. Check out Jay and Silent Bob's podcast.
Yeah,
Keep checking out our podcast. Check out PJ's store if you're in the tri-state area. And check out the Contestant if you want to see some hard to believe storytelling.
And also, I think by the time this comes out, it'll be just a few days away from Mother's Day.
Yes.
So have a happy Mother's Day, everyone listening who has a kid that's a mother.
Yeah. Happy Mother's Day. Right? We're here because of moms. So
that's right. Yeah.
Thanks, Mom. All right, guys. Same time, same table.
Have a good one.
Boys and girls, lunchtime is over. For more information, visit their website at coolkidslunchtable.podbean.com. Follow the boys on all social media platforms. Just search Cool Kids Lunch Table Podcast. Now get to class before you get detention.